Before you decide who I am, before your mind settles on a label for me, selfish, narcissist, a bad mother, or the one I hear whispered most often, that woman, I need you to do something that feels almost impossible in a world of scrolling headlines and instant judgment. I need you to grant me a few moments of your time. I need you to simply listen, because this story, my story, has become public property. A piece of local gossip traded between neighbors over a fence, a cautionary tale told in hushed tones in the coffee shop line. Did you hear about Sarah Miller, the fitness mom from the Willow Creek subdivision? Her poor husband. They think they know the story because they've seen a handful of pictures. They think they understand my choices because they've read a headline on some hyper-local news blog written by someone who has never once looked me in the eye. They see a picture of a woman in a sports bra, and they think they have the entire novel figured out from a single page. But they don't know the suffocating silence of a house at 3 a.m., the only sound the gentle hum of a baby monitor and the frantic beating of your own heart. They don't know what it's like to be illuminated by the cold, blue light of your phone as you stare at a banking app, watching a negative balance flicker, knowing that your son's fever from last week means you can't afford fresh groceries this week. They don't know the specific weight of the hospital bills from St. David's, the good hospital, the one all the books said you had to go to, the one that cost 3 times as much as the one your insurance preferred. But you do it anyway. You'd bankrupt yourself for that peace of mind, because what parent doesn't want the absolute best, the safest harbor for their child? And they certainly don't know my husband, Mark. Not really. They see a man who was wronged. They don't see the Mark I knew years ago. The boy I met in college at UT, the one who charmed me with his easy laugh and his ambitious dreams scribbled on the back of a napkin at a cafe on the drag. The man who held my hand so tightly in the blindingly white delivery room, his eyes filled with a terror and a love so profound it made my own fear subside. The man who whispered against my hair, "We're a team, Sarah. You and me and him against the world. Forever." Forever just wasn't built to withstand the pressures of the modern world. Forever turned out to have an expiration date, written in the fine print of our mortgage documents and student loan agreements. Our story begins in a place so familiar to millions, it's almost a cliché, under the shadow of a mountain of debt. It wasn't a glamorous, risk-taking kind of debt. It was the good kind. The kind you're told is an investment in your future. Student loans from 4 years of state university that felt more like a life sentence. A car loan. And the 30-year mortgage on a cramped, 3-bedroom starter home in a part of Austin that developers politely called up and coming. We were doing everything right, by the book. Mark was a solid, dependable man. A project manager for a mid-sized construction firm. He was out the door before the sun had a chance to burn off the morning mist, and he came home long after it had set, carrying the scent of sawdust, concrete, and sheer exhaustion. He was a provider. He wore that title like a badge of honor. He was doing everything a good American husband is supposed to do, and I, in turn, was doing everything a good American wife is supposed to do. I had a degree in marketing, a promising junior-level career that I put on an indefinite pause the moment I saw those 2 pink lines on the pregnancy test. I chose to stay home with our son, Liam, and there is not a single cell in my body that regrets that choice. I adored being his mother. I loved the curve of his cheek against mine, the milky scent of him after a feeding, the astonishing miracle of his tiny fingernails. But my love for him didn't erase the fact that a part of me was slowly, quietly being erased. My world, once filled with deadlines, colleagues, and creative briefs, had shrunk to the dimensions of our living room. My intellectual stimulation came from reading the same board book 12 times in a row. My greatest professional accomplishment was figuring out the exact combination of baking soda and vinegar required to get spit up out of a rug. I was a mother, and I was proud of it. But I was beginning to forget that I was also Sarah. Then came the fog. It didn't roll in with a thunderclap. It seeped in under the door, a slow, silent graying of the world. Postpartum depression is its clinical name, but that sounds too clean, too manageable. This was a dull, heavy blanket that smothered all the bright colors of life. I would look at Liam, my beautiful, perfect son, and feel a profound, intellectual love for him. But the emotional connection felt like it was coming through a weak radio signal, staticky and distant. My own body became a foreign country. This vessel that had performed the miracle of creating life now felt weak, bloated, and utterly alien. I'd catch my reflection in a darkened window and feel a jolt of revulsion, not recognizing the tired, puffy-faced woman staring back at me. My 6-week checkup was a blur of medical questions, but I remember my doctor, a kind woman with gentle eyes, looking at me and saying, "How are you, Sarah?" I gave the standard answer, "I'm fine, just tired." She didn't buy it. She suggested exercise. "You don't have to run a marathon. Just move your body, get your heart rate up. It helps clear the fog." So I began my strange ritual. In the humid, cramped space of our garage, between Liam's 2-hour nap cycles, I'd pull the car out onto the driveway and roll out a cheap $5 yoga mat from Target onto the cool, oil-stained concrete. The air smelled of gasoline, damp earth, and Mark's collection of tools. I'd prop my phone up against a can of paint and follow along with free workout videos led by impossibly cheerful women in pristine white studios. It was humiliating at first. My limbs felt uncoordinated. My lungs burned. Sweat dripped into my eyes, stinging. I couldn't do a single proper push-up. I'd collapse onto the mat, my body trembling with weakness, and feel a fresh wave of shame. But I kept doing it. I kept showing up on that cheap blue mat, because for 30 minutes a day, the crushing weight of being mom and wife was lifted, and I was just a body in motion. It was the only part of my day that was entirely my own. And then, week by week, a change began. It was subtle. I could hold a plank for 10 seconds longer. I could do 1 wobbly push-up, then 2. The physical strength was tangible, but the real change was happening somewhere deeper. The fog in my mind began to recede. The static on the radio signal connecting me to my own emotions started to clear. I would finish a workout, breathless and drenched in sweat, and feel a surge of endorphins that felt like pure, unadulterated joy. I was fighting my way back to myself. One afternoon, after a particularly grueling session, I took a picture. I was in an old, paint-stained college t-shirt and a pair of worn-out leggings. My hair was a mess. There was no filter, no perfect angle. I just felt proud. I felt strong. On a whim, I posted it to a private Facebook group I'd joined for new moms, a place of virtual solidarity. I wrote a simple caption, 6 months of showing up in the garage. It's not much, but I'm finally starting to feel like myself again. Keep going, mamas. I put my phone down and went to get Liam up from his nap. When I checked it again an hour later, it had exploded. Hundreds of likes. And the comments? Dozens of them, from women all over the country. "You are my absolute inspiration. Thank you for not using a filter. I've been feeling so lost. Seeing this made me feel like I'm not alone. How did you get started? You look so strong and happy." Each comment was like a sip of cool water after a long, arduous journey through a desert of invisibility. I was being seen, not as Mark's wife, not as Liam's mom, but as Sarah, a woman whose struggle and strength resonated with others. A woman named Jessica from Dayton, Ohio, messaged me privately. "I'm not kidding," she wrote. "You have a real gift for motivating people. The way you write is so honest. You should start a public page on Instagram or something. I guarantee people would follow your journey." An Instagram page? The thought was both thrilling and mortifying. It felt so self-important, so narcissistic. Who was I to put myself out there for public consumption? I was just a mom in a garage in Austin. But that very same night, the universe sent a sign, or maybe just a cruel reminder of our reality. Mark came home from work, his face etched with a familiar, deep-set worry. The air conditioning unit had finally died, in the middle of a brutal Texas July. The repairman had quoted them a price that was just shy of $4,000. It was an impossible sum. It would mean wiping out the tiny emergency fund we'd spent 2 years building, and then some. I lay in bed that night, the fan from the living room making a heroic but futile effort to cool our bedroom. I listened to Mark's troubled, shallow breathing as he slept, and I thought about Jessica's message. And I looked at the dark silhouette of Liam's crib in the corner. What if? What if this strength I was building could be forged into something more? What if this feeling of empowerment could become actual power? The power to fix a broken air conditioner. The power to build a life where a single unexpected expense didn't send our entire world into a tailspin. So I took the leap. I created the account. A simple, hopeful handle. Sarah Miller Fit. My hands were trembling as I uploaded that first picture, the same one from the Facebook group. I rewrote the caption, pouring my heart out. I wrote about the suffocating fog of postpartum depression, about feeling like a stranger in my own skin, and about the slow, painful, beautiful journey of reclaiming my strength on a cheap yoga mat in a cluttered garage. The response was slower this time, but more potent. A few hundred followers trickled in, then 1,000, then 5,000. They weren't just random people. They were a community, mostly women, mostly mothers. They shared their own stories in my comments. They asked for advice. I started sharing everything. My simple 30-minute workouts, the budget-friendly meals I was making, the internal struggles I was still facing. I was radically honest. I showed the days I felt unmotivated. I talked about the stretch marks on my stomach. I was real. The comments became my lifeblood. "I did your workout today and I feel amazing. Thank you, Sarah. I made your lentil soup for my family and they loved it. Who knew healthy could be cheap? Thank you for showing a real mom's body. It makes me hate my own a little less." Can you even begin to understand what a gift that is? To receive a message from a stranger, a sleep-deprived mom in Illinois, who tells you that you are the reason she found the energy to play with her kids that day. It was a sense of purpose that my respectable marketing job, with its quarterly reviews and soulless corporate jargon, had never once provided. Mark was my biggest cheerleader in those early days. It was all theoretical then, a fun little hobby. He'd proudly show his friends my page at a backyard barbecue. "Yeah, look at my wife. She's becoming a little internet celebrity. Got like 10,000 followers now." It was cute. It was non-threatening. The first brand collaboration felt like a surreal dream. I had around 20,000 followers. A small, woman-owned athletic wear company from California reached out. They loved my message. They wanted to send me a free set, a sports bra and leggings, in exchange for one post on my feed. Free clothes that weren't from the Target clearance rack? It was a level of luxury I hadn't known in years. The set arrived in a beautifully wrapped package. The fabric was soft and supportive. I put it on, and for the first time, I felt like a legitimate fitness person, not just a mom messing around in a garage. I took a mirror selfie, a huge, genuine smile on my face. I posted it, gushing about the quality and the woman-owned mission. The brand was ecstatic. My followers loved it. A week later, a different kind of email landed in my inbox, a well-known brand of organic protein powder. They also loved my authentic voice. They wanted to partner with me, and they wanted to pay me $500 for one picture and one story. $500. I must have read the email 20 times. I thought it was a scam. $500 was our car payment. It was a month's worth of Liam's daycare if I ever decided to go back to work. It was a tangible, meaningful amount of money. I showed the email to Mark, my hand shaking slightly. He let out a low whistle. $500 for a single photo? That's insane. Hell yeah, babe. Go for it. His support was so easy then. It was still found money, a novelty. I took the photo. I blended the protein powder into a smoothie in our dated kitchen. I wrote an honest review. And a few days later, $500 appeared in my PayPal account. It felt more real, more earned, than any paycheck I had ever received. And that was the turning point. That was when the snowball at the top of the hill started to roll. Because that $500 deal gave me the confidence to pitch other brands. And my follower count was climbing steadily. A deal for a brand of resistance bands was $750. A multi-post deal with a larger apparel company was $2,000. Yes, I was posting my body. I had to. I was advertising fitness apparel, workout equipment, nutritional supplements. It was the very nature of the job. I was a living, breathing billboard for a lifestyle of health and strength. It was my work uniform. It was my business. I finally had enough money to open a real business account under an LLC I created myself. Watching that balance grow was the most intoxicating, empowering feeling I had ever experienced. Every direct deposit, every paid invoice was a brick in a wall I was building around my family. A wall of security, a wall of freedom. I fixed the air conditioner without a moment's hesitation. I paid for it in full from my business account. Then, I tackled the mountain of debt that had haunted our marriage. I paid off our highest interest credit card. Then another. Then, one glorious afternoon, I made the final payment on my student loan. A debt I thought I would carry with me into my 40s was gone. I told Mark that evening, expecting him to be thrilled, to pop a bottle of champagne with me. But he just stared at me, his expression unreadable. You paid it off? Your entire student loan? Yes, I said, my smile faltering slightly at his muted reaction. Isn't it amazing? We're one step closer to being free. But he didn't look like he felt free. He looked distant. He looked at me as if I had just revealed I could speak a foreign language he had never known about. A language of financial power that he wasn't fluent in. It was the first time I realized my empowerment might feel like his diminishment. Life accelerated into a new reality. By the time my account, my community, had grown to 150,000 people, my monthly income from brand deals consistently surpassed Mark's salary. In my mind, we were still a team, just with a new star player. I wasn't stashing the money away in a secret account. I was meticulously managing it in a spreadsheet, creating budget categories, emergency fund, investments, Liam's 529 college savings plan, dream house down payment. One evening, I found a listing on Zillow. A beautiful, modest stone house in a neighborhood with access to the best public schools in the state. It had a huge, grassy backyard shaded by a mature oak tree. I could already see Liam running through the sprinklers there. I brought my laptop over to Mark on the couch. "Look," I whispered, full of excitement. "Look at this house. We can do this now. We can actually do this. For Liam. He could go to Westwood High someday." Mark looked at the screen, at the picture of the perfect family home. His face was a mask of conflicting emotions. "How much is a house like that?" he asked, his voice flat. I showed him the price, and then my spreadsheet. "If we keep this up, we could have the 20% down payment saved in 18 months, I explained. "All from my business income." He flinched when I said, "My business." He closed the laptop. "I don't like the way this is going, Sarah," he said, avoiding my eyes. "The house? I thought you'd be thrilled." "Not the house," he sighed, running a hand over his tired face. "The pictures, the comments from all those strangers, the way you have to display yourself. It's getting to be too much." My heart sank. "It's my job, Mark. We've talked about this. It's what allows us to even look at houses like this. It's no different than a model posing for a department store ad." "It's completely different, and you know it," he said, his voice rising for the first time. "You're not some anonymous model. You're my wife. You're Liam's mother. The guys at work, they all follow you now. They pass their phones around in the break room. They zoom in. They talk about my wife's body." And there it was. The raw, exposed nerve, his pride, his sense of ownership, his public image among other men. All of that was more important than the tangible, life-altering security I was building for us. It was more important than our son having the best possible education. "Tell me, what is the right answer here? What is the correct choice when your husband's ego is in direct opposition to your family's future? Do you shrink yourself back down to make him feel big again? Do you sacrifice your child's opportunities for your husband's comfort?" I tried to find a middle ground. I became hyper-aware of every photo. I'd spend hours trying to find an angle that showcased the athletic shorts without being too revealing. I posted more videos of my workouts, more pictures of my meals, more photos of Liam and me at the park. But the algorithm is a cruel master. The community responded most to the transformation pictures, the posts where my strength was visibly on display. The brands paid for product modeling, and when my engagement numbers dipped, so did my income. It was a simple, brutal equation. The arguments became a constant low-grade hum in our home, a background noise of resentment. They were quiet, vicious battles fought in whispers after Liam was asleep. "My mother called today," he'd say. "She saw that picture you posted in the blue sports bra. She asked if we were having money problems." "Why don't you tell your mother that blue sports bra just made our monthly contribution to her grandson's college fund?" I'd snap back. "This isn't the life I imagined, Sarah. I'm the man of this house. I'm supposed to be the one providing." "And you are. You have a great job. This isn't a competition. This is a partnership. Why can't you see me as your partner instead of your rival? Why does my success have to come at the cost of your pride?" He never had an answer. He'd just retreat into a stony silence, leaving me shivering in our beautiful, remodeled kitchen, feeling more alone than I ever had in my life. The absolute, definitive breaking point arrived on a rainy Tuesday in October. I had just gotten off a conference call that had left me breathless. A global, household name nutrition and wellness company. They wanted me to be one of their flagship U.S. ambassadors for the next year. The contract they offered was staggering. It was a number that would have seemed like a wild fantasy just 2 years earlier. It was more than Mark's annual salary. It was the house. It was college, paid in full. It was a future free from the gnawing anxiety of financial insecurity for our son and for us. The contract had a detailed list of deliverables. One of the key campaign images was for a new line of hydration drinks. The concept was a poolside shoot. Me in a bikini, looking strong, healthy, and happy. It was a standard professional commercial photo shoot. Tasteful, aspirational. I felt like I had summited Everest. I ran into the living room, the printed contract in my hand, my face flushed with victory and excitement. "Mark, you are not going to believe this." He was sitting on the couch, staring at his phone. He didn't look up. His face was ashen. "I believe it," he said, his voice hollow. "What's wrong?" He finally looked at me, and his eyes were full of a pain so deep it shocked me. "A guy at the office, one of the new interns. He thought it would be funny to airdrop something to everyone in a meeting today." He turned his phone around. It was a screenshot of one of my recent Instagram posts, but someone had photoshopped a vulgar, disgusting caption onto it. And below it was a long thread of lewd, humiliating comments from anonymous accounts. I felt a wave of nausea so intense I had to grip the back of a chair. That's vile. That's not my fault, Mark. Those are awful, anonymous people." "It doesn't matter whose fault it is," he yelled, standing up. "It's your body. It's your face. You're the one putting it out there. You're handing them the bullets to shoot at us. At me. At our family." He paced the room like a caged animal. "I can't do this anymore, Sarah. I cannot walk into my office tomorrow. I can't face them." And then he stopped, stood in front of me, his eyes pleading, desperate. "I am begging you. I am on my knees begging you. Please, stop. Stop posting your body. Shut down the account. Walk away from it all. Please. For us. For our marriage." I stood there, the life-changing contract clutched in my hand. He was asking me to choose. To burn down the entire future I had painstakingly built for our son, to appease his wounded pride. He was asking me to trade Liam's security for his comfort. He was asking me to douse the fire I had fought so hard to ignite within myself, to become small and safe and dependent again. I looked from the contract in my hand, which represented a future of freedom and opportunity, to my husband's tear-streaked face, which represented a past I could no longer return to. I thought about Liam, sleeping soundly in his room, blissfully unaware of the tectonic plates of his parents' world shifting beneath him. I was his mother. My primary duty was to him, to his future. I met his desperate gaze, and with a clarity that was both empowering and terrifying, I gave him my answer. No. The aftermath was not a slow decay. It was a demolition. He moved into the guest room that same night. The house became a mausoleum, filled with a silence so heavy it felt hard to breathe. We were two ghosts haunting the hallways of a life we had built together. He weaponized his family against me. His mother began calling daily, her voice a syrupy blend of fake concern and sharp judgment. "Sarah, dear, I know you're a modern woman, but a man needs to feel like a man. His reputation in the community is everything." I told her that my modern career had just paid off the loan on the car her son drove, and then I blocked her number. He made one final, dramatic appeal. He found me in the kitchen one night, his eyes red-rimmed. "Don't make me do this, Sarah. Don't force my hand." "Do what, Mark?" I asked, my voice tired, devoid of the energy to fight anymore. "Leave me because you can't handle a wife who is successful on her own terms?" 2 weeks later, a courier delivered a thick manila envelope to our front door. Divorce papers. But that was only the opening salvo. Buried deep within the legalese was the true declaration of war. He was filing for sole physical custody of Liam. His grounds were laid out in cold, clinical detail. My career as a fitness influencer, he argued, created a volatile, unstable, and morally compromising environment for a young child. He claimed my obsession with social media and my need for public validation made me a distracted and neglectful parent. He was taking every beautiful thing I had built, the community, the financial security, the self-worth, and twisting it into a grotesque caricature of an unfit mother. He was using my body, the very symbol of my strength and reclamation, to argue that I was a danger to my own son. How do you even begin to fight a narrative like that? How do you stand in the sterile, wood-paneled office of a high-priced lawyer and explain the nuance of the creator economy? How do you convince a 60-year-old family court judge that a picture of you in a bikini promoting a health drink was an act of profound love and provision for your child? My lawyer, a sharp, no-nonsense woman named Ms. Davies, was blunt. "This is going to be an ugly, uphill battle, Sarah," she said, her office overlooking the Austin skyline. "Your husband's legal team will play to every old-fashioned stereotype in the book. They are going to slut-shame you. They are going to portray you as a fame-hungry narcissist. You need to be prepared." I thought I was prepared. I was not. The deposition was a form of psychological torture. Mark's lawyer, a smug man with a practiced, sympathetic smile, made me sit for 8 hours while he picked apart my life. He read my Instagram captions with a sarcastic inflection. He asked me how much time I spent on my phone versus how much time I spent playing with my son. He made me feel like the most selfish woman on the planet. The custody hearing itself was an out-of-body experience. They had printed my photographs, my work, onto giant foam boards and set them up on easels, facing the judge, like evidence in a murder trial. There I was, in vibrant color, smiling, strong, powerful. And they used those images to paint me as a villain. They read anonymous, hateful comments from trolls aloud into the court record, as if the words of Big Daddy 69 were a credible assessment of my maternal fitness. Mark's lawyer argued that I was exposing our son to a world of online predators and body shaming. He never once mentioned that the money from that exposure was meant to insulate our son from the far more real dangers of poverty and lack of opportunity. Mark sat beside his lawyer, his face set like stone. He never looked at me, not once. He listened as they systematically dismantled my character, as they used our private arguments against me, as they turned my ambition into a personality disorder. He let them do it. The man who had promised to be my teammate simply watched from the opposing bench as the other side tried to destroy me. When it was my turn, I tried to explain. My voice trembled as I held up the binders of financial documents I had so carefully prepared. "This was for him," I said, my voice cracking, tears blurring the judge's impassive face. "The house in the good school district, the college fund, the freedom to let him be anything he wants to be without worrying about money. This was all for Liam." The judge, a man with graying hair and a weary expression, looked at my financial statements. Then he looked at the giant photo of me laughing by a pool, and I could see on his face that he had already made his decision. He couldn't reconcile the two images. He couldn't see the love in the work. He only saw the perceived shame. You probably don't need me to tell you how it ended. The story wrote itself, didn't it? Society loves a simple narrative. The hard-working, traditional father, the out-of-control, fame-obsessed mother. The court's decision was delivered in a flat, dispassionate tone. It spoke of the need for stability, for a consistent and traditional environment. It awarded primary physical custody of our son, Liam, to his father. I was granted visitation every other weekend and on alternating holidays. And in a final, crushing act of irony, I was ordered to pay child support to Mark, the amount calculated based on the income from the very career they had just used to deem me an unfit parent. The public nature of the custody battle was the final nail in the coffin for my business. The brands couldn't risk the bad PR. The contracts were terminated, citing moral clauses. My community, once a source of light and support, became a battlefield of vicious debate. The page I had built with so much love and honesty became a toxic wasteland. It all just dissolved. So now, I am here. In this quiet, two-bedroom apartment in a less desirable part of town, an apartment that costs more than our old mortgage. The air is thick with the silence of a home without a child's laughter. The big house with the oak tree in the backyard is a ghost, a dream I can no longer afford to even look at on Zillow. The college fund was vaporized, spent defending myself against the man who was supposed to be my partner in building it. He begged me to stop posting my body. I refused. I refused because I was a mother, and I believed my most sacred duty was to build a secure and abundant future for my son. In the end, my fight for his future cost me my present with him. So I have to ask you, and I need you to be honest with yourself. What was the right move? When the world we live in offers women a new way to build power, to create security, to provide for their own, but then punishes them for using it, what are they supposed to do? Tell me. At what point did my determination to be a good mother become the evidence of my failure as one?